My name is Daniel Carter. I'm from Houston, Texas, and if there's one thing life has taught me, it's this: the truth always finds its way out, no matter how carefully people try to bury it. But the truth doesn't come quietly. It explodes when you least expect it, and sometimes, it destroys everything you thought you knew. Are you serious, Rachel? My voice was so loud that it rattled the picture frames on our living room wall. I couldn't hold back anymore. My hands were clenched, my chest was heaving, and every nerve in my body was burning with betrayal. Across from me, my wife Rachel stood with her arms crossed, her eyes rolling like I was nothing more than an annoyance. "Don't yell at me in my own house, Daniel. You're acting crazy over nothing," she snapped, her words dripping with arrogance and venom. "Nothing?" I shouted back, slamming my fist against the dining table so hard the coffee mugs rattled. "You call this nothing? You sent our daughter's lunchbox with me by mistake today, and what I found inside," my voice cracked, but my anger carried me through. "What I found inside was proof that you've been lying to me. Proof that you've been betraying me." Her face froze for a split second, then twisted into a mocking smirk. "Oh, please. You think you're some kind of detective now? You don't know what you saw. You don't know what you're talking about. That was it." That smirk, that dismissive tone, like my pain was some kind of joke, it ignited something deep inside me. I stepped closer, my voice low but shaking with fury. "Don't you dare stand there and gaslight me. Don't you dare tell me I didn't see what I saw. Because Rachel, for once in my life, I have proof. And you're not talking your way out of this." She fired back instantly, her voice climbing to match mine. "You always play the victim, Daniel. Always the martyr, the poor husband who works too hard and gets mistreated. Maybe if you paid attention to me instead of your job, you'd actually know what's going on in this family." The words hit me like knives, but they only sharpened my anger. "Don't you twist this on me. I've broken my back to give this family everything. I've worked nights, weekends, skipped vacations, just so you and Emily never had to worry about a thing. And this is how you repay me? By sneaking around behind my back, by hiding things in our daughter's lunchbox like I'd never find out?" Her eyes flickered, guilt, panic, something she couldn't quite hide, before she masked it with more venom. "You don't know what you're saying. You don't know the full story." "Oh, I know enough," I hissed. "I know enough to realize I've been living with a stranger. I know enough to realize that everything I thought about us, about our marriage, about you, has been a lie." The room was electric, every word between us like a blade, every silence like a loaded gun waiting to go off. My daughter's drawings still hung on the refrigerator, her schoolbooks stacked neatly on the counter, a reminder that she was in the middle of this war whether I wanted her to be or not. But here's the thing about lies: they don't stay buried forever. And when they surface, they don't just hurt. They shatter. They expose. They demand answers. And in that moment, standing in my own kitchen, screaming at the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, I realized I was staring at the beginning of the end. You see, life doesn't warn you before it changes. It doesn't say, "Get ready, the truth is about to hit." It just happens. And when it does, you either let it crush you, or you rise through the ashes. That day, when Rachel's mask began to crack and I held the truth in my hands, I made a choice. I wasn't going to be silent. I wasn't going to let her lies define me. I was going to fight back, not just for me, but for Emily, for the family I thought we had, and for the truth that refused to stay hidden. Because here's the moral, the lesson I had to learn the hardest way: secrets never stay secret. And sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones who hide the sharpest knives. If you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart, only to find out they were living a double life, you know the kind of pain I'm talking about. But stay with me, because my story isn't just about betrayal. It's about what happens when you uncover the truth, when you're forced to confront lies that were buried right in front of you, and when you realize that the fight for your family isn't always against strangers, sometimes it's against the people sitting at your own dinner table. So don't look away. Because what I found in that lunchbox changed everything. I still remember the moment that morning, like it's carved into my mind with fire. I was rushing out the door, late for a meeting, tie hanging loose around my neck, travel mug of lukewarm coffee in one hand, when Rachel called out from the kitchen, "Don't forget your lunch, Daniel." That in itself was unusual, she hadn't packed me a lunch in years. We were both busy, living parallel lives under the same roof, and I had gotten used to grabbing something from the office cafeteria. But she shoved a small pink lunchbox into my hands, the same one with unicorn stickers that Emily carried to school, and she said, "Just take it, I packed too much for her." At first, I didn't think anything of it. I tossed it into my briefcase and sped off. The day was chaos, traffic jams, conference calls, deadlines piling like bricks on my back. By noon, I was drained, and when I finally sat down at my desk and unzipped my bag, the bright pink lunchbox was staring up at me like a misplaced toy. I chuckled bitterly. My coworkers would have had a field day if they saw me eating out of a unicorn lunchbox. But when I opened it, that laugh caught in my throat and turned to stone. Inside, beneath the sandwich wrapped in foil, there wasn't just food. There was a folded envelope. Cream-colored. Delicate. With Rachel's handwriting across the front, only it wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to my love. My heart slammed against my ribs. My hand shook as I pulled it out, my sandwich forgotten. For a moment, I told myself maybe it was some note meant for Emily, something playful, a mistake. But when I slid it open, the words inside bled like poison into my chest. "Last night was everything I needed. I can't stop thinking about you. I wish I was in your arms right now instead of stuck in this house with him. Soon, baby. Soon we won't have to hide anymore." My world tilted. The office noise around me faded to a hollow silence. My vision blurred with rage, disbelief, betrayal. My wife, my Rachel, writing love letters to someone else, sneaking them into our daughter's lunchbox as if it were some secret courier. I slammed the box shut so hard that a coworker from the next cubicle peeked over the divider. "You okay, Dan?" he asked casually, but I couldn't even answer. My throat was burning, my stomach twisted. I muttered something about not feeling well and stormed out of the office, clutching that letter like a piece of evidence in a trial that hadn't even begun. By the time I reached home, my hands were still trembling. That was the fight. That was why I exploded the moment I stepped inside. The lunchbox wasn't just a mistake, it was the crack in the dam that let the whole ocean of truth come flooding in. And yet, in the middle of the screaming, in the middle of the accusations and denials, I realized something chilling. Rachel wasn't surprised. She wasn't caught off guard that I had found the letter. No, she was angry that her little system had failed. She was mad at herself for slipping, for letting her secret brush up against my reality. And in that moment, I saw her clearly, maybe for the first time in years. This wasn't guilt. This was defiance. "You don't know what you saw," she spat again, but her eyes betrayed her. "You think you're the perfect husband, Daniel, but you're not. You're never here. You don't listen. Maybe if you had, I wouldn't have needed to look somewhere else." Needed. That word cut me deeper than any blade. She didn't just make a mistake. She justified it. She painted herself as the victim. She made her betrayal into my fault. And the truth is, a part of me almost believed her. That's the cruelest trick betrayal plays on you, it makes you question yourself, your worth, your memory. But then I thought of Emily. Our sweet little girl, who still believed her parents loved each other, who still kissed me goodnight and thought her world was safe. And I realized I couldn't let Rachel's lies infect her too. I couldn't let this poison spread any further. I didn't yell again. My voice dropped, calm but ice cold. "Who is he, Rachel?" Her lip quivered, but she covered it with another scoff. "You don't need to know." But I did know. Because deep down, the puzzle pieces had already been forming for weeks: the late-night girls' dinners, the extra time at the gym, the sudden text messages she'd hide when I walked into the room. I just never had the proof until now. And here's the hardest part of this story: sometimes the truth doesn't just hurt you. It forces you to see the person you love as a stranger. It forces you to realize you've been sharing a bed, a life, with someone who was playing a different game entirely. That lunchbox wasn't just a container for food. It was a container for secrets. For the end of my marriage. For the beginning of a war I never asked for but couldn't avoid. That night, after Rachel stormed out of the kitchen, slamming doors behind her, I sat at the table staring at that little pink box. Emily's unicorn stickers smiled up at me, innocent, pure. And I thought, how cruel is it that something meant to carry a child's lunch had been turned into a vessel for betrayal? But as much as it broke me, it also lit a fire inside me. I wasn't going to let Rachel destroy me. I wasn't going to let her lies become the truth. That lunchbox gave me proof, and proof gave me power. And with that power, I made a decision that would change the course of everything. The night after the fight, sleep wouldn't come. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while Rachel slept on the far edge, her back turned to me, breathing slow and steady as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb in our marriage. I wanted to shake her, to demand answers, to force her to tell me who he was. But I didn't. I stayed still, listening to the silence between us, and realized something terrifying. This silence had been there for years. I had just been too blind, too busy, to hear it. When the sun came up, I got Emily ready for school, trying to plaster on a smile, trying to keep her world intact even though mine was crumbling. She skipped down the hallway with her little backpack bouncing, no clue that her lunchbox had carried more than sandwiches the day before. I kissed her forehead, and when she asked, "Daddy, are you okay?" I almost broke. But I forced a smile and said, "I'm fine, princess. Just tired." That's the cruel thing about being a parent. Even when you're shattered, you still have to pretend to be whole, because their innocence is worth more than your truth. After I dropped her off, I parked my car in a grocery store lot and pulled the letter back out. My hands shook again as I read it over, word by word, searching for clues. And then I noticed something I had missed the first time. The bottom of the letter wasn't signed with a name. It was signed with a single initial. M. My stomach turned. M. It could have been anyone. A coworker. A gym trainer. A neighbor. The world suddenly felt smaller and more dangerous. I thought of everyone we knew whose name began with M, and a sickening parade of faces marched through my mind. That's when paranoia started to creep in. Every man who smiled at her too long. Every text that buzzed her phone after midnight. Every time she said she was staying late or meeting friends. I couldn't trust anything anymore. The truth wasn't just in that letter. It was hiding in plain sight all along. But here's the thing about betrayal: once you've seen the first crack, you can't stop looking for the others. And I wasn't going to sit around waiting for Rachel to slip up again. If she wasn't going to tell me who he was, I was going to find out myself. That evening, after Rachel went upstairs to take a bath, I went through her purse. I hated myself for it, but I told myself I had no choice. I found her phone tucked inside. Locked, of course. But as I held it in my hand, I remembered something. Rachel was predictable. Her passcodes were always Emily's birthday. I typed it in, and the screen unlocked instantly. My heart raced as I scrolled through her messages. Most looked innocent: chats with her sister, group texts with friends. But then I found a thread that was different. The name wasn't saved as a contact. Just a single letter, M. The messages made my stomach twist. I miss you already. Last night was worth the risk. He doesn't suspect a thing. Soon, baby. Soon. My vision blurred. With rage. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, to wake her up and scream the truth in her face. But I didn't. I kept scrolling, desperate for the detail that would reveal who this shadow in my marriage really was. And then I saw it. A message that made my blood run cold. Can't wait to see you at the office tomorrow. Wear that dress I love. The office. My office. I gripped the phone so hard I thought it would crack. It wasn't just some stranger. It wasn't just some nameless man from the gym or the bar. It was someone I worked with. Someone who saw me every day, shook my hand, smiled in my face, all while stealing my wife behind my back. The realization burned through me. I dropped the phone back into her purse and walked out of the house before I did something I couldn't take back. The night air was sharp against my skin, but my mind was hotter than fire. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. Because here's the truth, sometimes betrayal doesn't come from far away. Sometimes it's standing right next to you, laughing with you, clapping you on the back. And that makes it 1,000 times worse. The next morning at work, I walked through those office doors with a different set of eyes. I looked at every man whose name started with M, Michael from accounting, Mark from IT, Matthew from sales. Any one of them could have been the one. Every smile felt like a smirk, every handshake felt like mockery. My chest tightened with every passing hour, waiting for one of them to slip, waiting for the mask to fall. And then, at lunch, it happened. I was walking past the break room when I heard laughter. I froze. Rachel's laughter. I knew that sound anywhere. I peeked through the glass window, and there she was. Sitting across from Michael, one of my coworkers, leaning close, her eyes sparkling in a way they hadn't around me in years. And in that moment, I knew. I didn't need another letter. I didn't need another text. I had my answer. The M wasn't just a letter. It was Michael. My coworker. My so-called friend. I stepped back from the glass before they saw me, my fists clenched, my jaw locked. I wanted to storm in, to drag him out by his collar, to humiliate them both in front of the whole office. But I didn't. Because for the first time, I understood something deeper. Sometimes revenge isn't about shouting the truth. Sometimes it's about holding it close, waiting, planning. Letting them believe they're still winning while you prepare to take everything away. That day, as I watched my wife laugh with another man in my own workplace, I made a vow. They thought they were clever. They thought they were untouchable. But they had forgotten one thing. I had the lunchbox. I had the letters. I had the truth. And with the truth on my side, I wasn't just going to confront them. I was going to destroy them. The next morning, I walked into the office with a storm inside me. My coworkers chatted casually in the hallway, their voices blending into a meaningless blur, but I wasn't listening. I was focused, hunting. Because now I knew who he was. Michael. The man who had been laughing in my face while sneaking behind my back. The man who had turned my wife into his little secret. I spotted him near the coffee machine, grinning, his tie loose, sleeves rolled up like he didn't have a care in the world. He leaned against the counter, charming a couple of interns with one of his funny stories. I used to laugh at those stories. I used to think he was harmless. But now, all I saw was betrayal wrapped in a fake smile. I walked straight up to him, my footsteps heavy enough that the interns glanced at me nervously and slipped away. Michael looked up, and his grin faltered when he saw my face. He knew. He must have seen the fire in my eyes, the clenched fists at my sides. "Daniel," he said, his voice a little too casual. "You look." I didn't let him finish. I shoved him hard against the counter, the coffee mugs rattling as he stumbled back, wide-eyed. "You think you're clever, don't you?" I growled, my voice low but shaking with fury. "You think I wouldn't find out?" "Whoa, what are you talking about?" he stammered, holding up his hands like he was innocent. But the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "Don't play dumb with me, Michael," I spat. "I know everything. I know about the letters. The messages. The nights you spent with her. Don't you dare stand here in my office, in my space, and pretend you don't know exactly what I'm talking about." The break room had gone silent. People were gathering at the doorway, whispering, eyes wide. But I didn't care. Let them see. Let them hear. This wasn't going to be a secret anymore. Michael's face twisted, his mask cracking. "Look, Daniel, it's not what you think." I laughed bitterly, a hollow sound that echoed in the room. "Not what I think. You've been sneaking around with my wife for months, maybe longer. You've been looking me in the eye every single day while you were stabbing me in the back. And now you're going to stand here and tell me it's not what I think? He glanced at the crowd, his cheeks burning. Keep your voice down, man. You don't want to make a scene. Oh no, I cut him off, stepping closer, my face inches from his. This scene? This is exactly what I want. I want everyone to know the kind of man you really are. A coward. A thief. A backstabber who couldn't build his own life, so he decided to take mine instead. Michael shoved my hand off his chest, his own temper flaring. You don't understand, Daniel. Rachel came to me. She needed me. You weren't there for her. You were always buried in work, always too busy. She was lonely, and that was it. The spark that ignited the explosion. I grabbed his collar and slammed him back against the counter, my voice booming through the room. Don't you dare blame me for your sins. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Someone muttered, "Oh my God," another whispered, "Is he serious?" Phones were out now, cameras recording. But I didn't care. I wanted the truth out, raw and ugly. You don't get to stand there and justify tearing apart my family. I shouted, my fists trembling as I fought every urge to swing. You don't get to tell me my wife's betrayal is my fault. You're not a savior, Michael, you're a parasite. For a second, he had no words. Just silence. His face red, his eyes darting to the growing audience. And then, in a low, venomous tone meant only for me, he muttered, "She doesn't love you anymore, Daniel. She loves me." The words hit harder than any punch. My vision blurred, rage clawing at my chest. I let go of his collar, my hands shaking too much to hold him. For a moment, the room spun, whispers, stares, judgment pressing in from every angle. But then, just as quickly, clarity sliced through the chaos. I turned, looking at everyone in that break room. My co-workers, my supposed friends. The witnesses to my humiliation. And I realized something powerful. Michael thought he had one. Rachel thought she had me fooled. They both thought I was weak, broken, destroyed. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. I straightened my tie, my voice calm but carrying enough force to silence the whispers. You hear that, everyone? Michael here thinks it's okay to sleep with another man's wife. He thinks it's okay to betray his coworker, his friend, and then blame it on the husband who's been working himself to the bone to provide for his family. The crowd shifted, eyes narrowing at Michael, whispers turning sharp. He tried to speak, but I raised a hand. No. You've said enough. From this day forward, everyone will know exactly who you are. You don't get to hide in the shadows anymore. You wanted her, Michael? Congratulations. She's yours. But I promise you this. You're both going to regret underestimating me. I walked out of that break room with my head high, my heart still pounding, my world still fractured. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just a betrayed husband anymore. I was a man with a mission. Because betrayal can break you, or it can build you. And I decided right then I wasn't going to be broken. Michael thought that was the end of it. But he had no idea. That confrontation? That was just the beginning. The night after the confrontation at work, the house felt colder than ever. Rachel was silent, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline, her eyes glued to it while she pretended not to notice me sitting at the table. I had humiliated Michael, exposed him in front of everyone. But the victory felt hollow, because the real battlefield wasn't the office, it was right here, inside these walls. Emily skipped into the kitchen in her pajamas, her hair a tangled mess, her little arms wrapping around my waist. "Daddy, can we have pancakes tomorrow?" "Please," she begged, her smile wide and unshaken. And in that moment, my chest tightened with both love and pain. She had no idea that her family was splitting apart, that the mother she adored was tearing holes through the foundation of her world. "Of course, Princess," I said, forcing a smile, ruffling her hair. "We'll have the biggest stack of pancakes you've ever seen." Rachel shot me a look across the table, sharp and bitter, but said nothing. For Emily's sake, we both swallowed the storm. And that silence, that fake normal, felt worse than the shouting. Because kids aren't blind. They sense the tension, even when you pretend it isn't there. Later that night, I overheard Rachel whispering on the phone in the hallway. Her voice was low, but I caught the words. He embarrassed Michael at work. I don't know what he's planning next. No, I'll handle it. Just don't come by the house. I leaned against the wall in the darkness, my fists clenching. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. The betrayal wasn't just a secret now, it was becoming a weapon. She was protecting him, not me. And yet, she still had the nerve to turn the narrative against me. The next morning, as Emily packed her backpack, Rachel pulled me aside, her voice sharp. You need to stop, Daniel. Whatever you think you're doing, it's not helping. You humiliated both of us yesterday. Do you have any idea how that looked? I stared at her, my voice low but steady. I don't care how it looked. I care about the truth. And I won't let you rewrite it to make me the villain. Her eyes narrowed. If you cared about the truth, you'd admit your part in this. You were never around. You made it easy for me to look somewhere else. I wanted to scream, to remind her that I had worked those long hours for her, for Emily, for us. But then Emily came bounding back into the room, her innocent eyes darting between us, and I bit my tongue. Because what good was the truth if it tore her apart in the process? For the next few days, I played along. I laughed with Emily, made her pancakes, walked her to school. But every time Rachel's phone buzzed, every time she slipped into another room to answer it, the fire inside me burned hotter. And then, one evening, I saw something that almost broke me. Emily was sitting at the kitchen table, drawing with her crayons. She had drawn a picture of our family, me, her, and Rachel, all holding hands, smiling. But when I looked closer, I saw another figure squeezed in beside Rachel. A man with dark hair, taller than me, drawn with a bright red smile. Who's this, sweetheart? I asked gently, pointing at the drawing. She looked up at me with wide eyes, innocent and unknowing. That's Mommy's friend. He makes her laugh. She said he's nice. The world stopped. My daughter, my little girl, already knew about him. Maybe not the truth, not the ugly parts, but enough. Enough to start reshaping how she saw her mother, her father, her family. I excused myself, walked into the bathroom, and locked the door before the tears came. Not just from anger, but from heartbreak. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. Rachel's choices weren't just shattering our marriage, they were rewriting my daughter's childhood. They were planting seeds of confusion in her heart, seeds that could grow into scars she'd carry forever. That night, after Emily went to bed, I sat across from Rachel at the kitchen table. The air between us was sharp, like glass. You've brought him into her life, I said, my voice trembling with restrained rage. You couldn't keep it between us. You had to let her see him. You had to let her draw him into her world. Rachel's face hardened. She deserves to know the truth. She deserves to see me happy. I slammed my hand on the table, my voice rising. Happy? You call this happiness? Destroying her sense of family? Teaching her that betrayal is love? If you think that's happiness, Rachel, then you're more lost than I thought. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, guilt, maybe, or doubt. But it was gone as quickly as it came. She stood, folding her arms. I'm not going to apologize for wanting more. You couldn't give it to me. He can. That's the truth. I sat there in silence, staring at the woman I once promised forever to, realizing that forever had already ended. But instead of despair, a new feeling rose in me. Resolve. Because if she wanted to rewrite the truth, I was going to make sure the whole world saw the real story. Not just Emily. Not just me. Everyone. That night, I pulled the lunchbox out from the cupboard. I opened it, staring at the unicorn stickers, the faded marker drawings, the little scratches from years of use. It wasn't just a lunchbox anymore. It was evidence. It was my weapon. and I knew exactly how I was going to use it. The day I chose my revenge was ordinary for everyone else, a Tuesday, gray skies, traffic jams, the hum of office life. But for me, it was the day I would stop being the victim. It was the day I would take back my dignity. I had spent nights replaying every moment, every word, every smirk Rachel and Michael had thrown at me. And then I realized something simple but powerful: they used a lunchbox to hide their lies. I was going to use that same lunchbox to expose them. Our company had a quarterly meeting scheduled, where every department gathered in the big conference hall. Dozens of employees, managers, even the regional director would be there. It was supposed to be about numbers, strategies, and goals. But I knew it would become something else. Something unforgettable. That morning, I dropped Emily off at school, kissed her on the forehead, and told her I loved her more than anything in the world. She smiled, innocent, unaware of the storm her parents were trapped in. For her, I told myself. For her, I had to finish this. I arrived at the office early, carrying the pink unicorn lunchbox in my hand. Some coworkers chuckled when they saw me with it, thinking it was just another dad moment. But inside that lunchbox wasn't sandwiches or apples. It was the stack of love letters I had found. Every word Rachel had written, every message Michael had sent. The proof. When the meeting began, Michael strutted into the room like nothing had happened. He avoided my eyes, but I saw the smug confidence in his shoulders. He thought the storm had passed. He thought Rachel's lies had shielded him. He thought I was beaten. He had no idea what was coming. The presentations dragged on: charts, numbers, buzzwords. My chest burned with every passing minute. And then, finally, when the floor opened for questions, I stood. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to me. I have something to share, I said, my voice steady but carrying through the hall. Something that isn't about profits or strategies. It's about trust. Because without trust, no company, no team can survive. I walked to the front, placed the lunchbox on the table, and slowly unzipped it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I pulled out the letters, holding them up for everyone to see. These, I said, my voice sharp, are love letters. Written by my wife. To a man who works in this very office. Gasps filled the room. Heads turned, whispers spread like wildfire. Michael's face went pale, his jaw tightening as he realized what I was doing. I unfolded one of the letters and read aloud, my voice cutting through the silence. Last night was everything I needed. I wish I was in your arms right now instead of stuck in this house with him. Soon, baby. Soon we won't have to hide anymore. The room erupted. Some people gasped audibly, others covered their mouths. All eyes swung to Michael. He looked cornered, his face red, his fists clenched on the table. Michael, I said, locking eyes with him, my voice trembling with righteous anger, you thought you could stab me in the back, smile in my face, and no one would ever know. You thought you could hide your betrayal in my daughter's lunchbox. But today, everyone knows the truth. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. This is out of line, Daniel. You can't. Oh, I can, I cut him off, slamming the letters onto the table. Because betrayal isn't just personal. It poisons everything it touches. Trust. Friendship. Even the workplace we share. And if you think you can live off lies forever, think again. Because lies rot, Michael. And today, yours are exposed. The director, wide-eyed, called security. Michael tried to argue, tried to salvage his dignity, but the whispers had already turned into judgment. He wasn't just my betrayer anymore. He was a man branded in front of everyone as a liar, a cheat, a fraud. And Rachel? She showed up halfway through the chaos, rushing in with wide eyes when she heard what happened. She pulled me aside, hissing under her breath. How could you do this? You humiliated me. You humiliated all of us. I looked her dead in the eye, my voice calm, almost cold. No, Rachel. You humiliated yourself. You chose to betray me. You chose to lie. You chose to bring our daughter into your mess. All I did was show the world what you really are. For the first time, I saw her mask break. Her eyes filled with tears, her lips trembled. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. Because the truth was out. And the truth had set me free. I walked away from her that day, carrying nothing but the lunchbox in my hand. It wasn't a container for lies anymore. It was a symbol of survival. A reminder that no matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how painful the scars, the truth always rises. When I picked Emily up from school that afternoon, she climbed into the car, smiling as she held up her drawing of our family. This time, it was just the three of us: me, her, and Rachel. But I knew better. I knew families change. People fall. Promises break. And maybe one day, I'd have to explain to her why her picture looked different than her reality. But in that moment, I held her hand and said, "No matter what happens, Princess, Daddy will always be here. Always." And that's the moral, isn't it? People will betray you. People will lie to you. People will try to bury the truth in shadows. But the truth has a way of shining through, no matter how dark it gets. And when it does, you have a choice: to let it break you, or to let it build you. Me? I chose to rise.